Why is sexual health such a taboo conversation? Because it puts a lot of stress on both the men and the women who want to have children, right? They're not healing their trauma, they're not accessing their spiritual gifts because their trauma locks them into the 3D ego. I need to have this job to make a ton of money.
That sexual act is an exchange of energy, and it is such a significant exchange of energy that not only are you exchanging energy with that person, but you're even taking on some of their karma. The energy that's going standardly in the microcosmic orbit is post-heaven chi, whereas once the kundalini energy is awakened and joins it, it's basically filling the microcosmic orbit with pre-heaven jing.
Let's talk about some deep shit.
It's lunacy. Lunacy and logic.
With Lilith and Dr. Charlier.
And welcome back, Cosmic Family, to another episode of Lunacy and
Logic!
with your co-host, Dr. Charlier and
Lilith in the house!
yeah, welcome back, everyone. So excited. Okay, so let's get right into it because we have a pretty busy episode, a lot happening, so we definitely want to get right into it. So, what's the pulse like going on today in the collective? Yeah, so the pulse today, I feel like it's getting a little bit wiry and slippery still, and then we have kind of this hollow pulse where we're kind of getting this excess energy, but then there's a lot of deficiency because during this eclipse season, like a lot of energy was released, and so we have kind of like this deficiency building. But then I feel like everyone's still like a little intense, and so that's why you have this excess pulse kind of still, not excess, but the floating pulse that's happening because it's a little hollow because we've kind of hollowed ourselves out through this eclipse season. So this pulse is very interesting. What do you think, Lilith?
Yeah, I'm feeling like the pulse is, like you said, a little bit hollow and slippery, so that excess is there, like a superficial excess with an underlying deficiency. And I'm feeling a little bit rapid. So I'm feeling with everything that the collective has been through, there's like a heart yin deficiency with heat that's rooted in like a spleen deficiency.
Yeah, and then that wiry is just that tension that everyone's feeling. So I do feel like a lot of anxiety happening because I think there's a lot of unknown. There's a lot of, we just finished the portal of the double Virgo eclipse season, and we all know a lot happened collectively and personally. So we can definitely talk about that in the real talk. But yeah, like this pulse collectively is, I think a lot of people are feeling some kind of overall anxiety.
Yeah, well, that wiry that you're talking about, I think that is, remember last time we were talking about this influx of wind?
Yes.
I think that is pretty much like the impact of that influx of wind, It's like, that is almost like overlaying that spleen deficiency.
Exactly, and I feel like it's like this liver, like kind of like it's like triggering us, right? So a lot of wind, because wind, livers are connected, and it's like a little too much now going on. And I think that's why it's kind of like creating this tension that we're all feeling. So we'll definitely talk about ways to combat that later. But yeah, I mean, this pulse is a doozy, and it's funny that we're all feeling it as well.
No, but exactly, because the wiry is also like that scattered mind and the frustration. There's some agitation, and this spleen chi deficiency is really from a lack of grounding and a lack of nourishment that's happening. And really what this pulse and these symptoms are actually pointing to, what we're actually experiencing, like you said, this anxiety, but also like sleeplessness, restlessness, because there's just a lot of chaos that's going on.
Yeah. I did not sleep very well last night. I had some dreams and I woke up super early. I've been up since 5 and I couldn't go back to sleep. So I totally feel like the evenings are not necessarily the most stressful right now. I'm not sure if we're just picking up a lot of psychic energy, but yeah, I have not been getting good sleep. So I definitely am feeling a little bit of this anxiety with like some deficiency overall.
Well, I think that the not sleeping is also like that yang that is not rooting.
Yeah, there's a lot going on for me on my end. I have so many kind of deadlines on things to do. So like as much as like I've been trying to like let go a lot of things that no longer serve me, I also have to push myself because I do have a lot of coming events and speaking engagement that requires a lot of my attention to kind of develop. So I also feel like, you know, the sleepless night, maybe like I kind of had that whole didn't do my homework dreams, right? And I think all of us can have this experience where like maybe we're late at school or we're like late for something. It's just something feels like we should be moving, but we're not, but we are.
You know, this eclipse season, bro. This eclipse season has basically, it's basically overloaded the system. We are overstimulated, overworked. There's just basically too much coming in too fast. Too much scrolling, too much information, too much stimulation, too much to hold. There's just too much.
Yeah.
And the point is that too much, we're feeling depleted, like we're run out, we're exhausted. I mean, I'm really feeling the depleted energy. I did my Aries workout today, which is like my heavy workout. And let me tell you, I had to like push myself because I went into that workout drained.
And so you're describing also a spleen chi deficiency. No, what we're talking about is just digestion. Spleen chi is like the digestion energy, and for it to be deficient, that means that like we're having also a hard time digesting food. So we're also probably having a hard time processing information, digesting new information, and so it's probably a little tricky to eat, and so there's a little bit of sluggish bloating that's happening, and that's kind of what we talk when we say spleen chi deficiency. So it's just for you guys to understand that like just things feels like it's like bloated. I guess.
Do you know what's so fucking crazy, Charlie? I had that in my notes, like the collective is feeling bloated. And I wiped it out. I was like,
Yeah.
no, I don't know how that fits in. And then you come and you say it. So it is, y'all. So it is. No, that's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And that shows up kind of like the pulse, what we said, right? Where you have this deficiency spleen chi, so the digestion isn't happening, but you're full, right? Like that excess pulse. We're full because we're not digesting. And so this is very important for us to kind of pay attention, just because I think it's not an easy time for us to feel this bloated at this time.
Yeah.
So let us move into the codes of destiny as we try to understand what the hell is going on in the energies in the in the galaxy.
Astrology.
Yeah, and the astrology. So now in Codes of Destiny, we got some retrogrades going on, right? We got the Neptune, Saturn still retrograding backwards into Pisces, and then we've got a equinox that just happened. My Sun is moving into Libra as we kind of finished this Virgo eclipse. So like Virgo was like really clearing and purifying our body, and then Libra comes and goes, oh, let's just go have fun and be cute and pretty. And you're like, yo, like I still am dealing with the shit that I just dealt in the eclipse. I just don't even know how to deal with this. Like, let's be cute and pretty and go have fun. It's like, no, like I'm still processing what the hell this last 3 weeks was when these eclipses, again, when we rarely have two eclipses, and on top of that, it was an eclipse in the south node of Virgo. So a lot of us kind of were clearing a lot of this heavy karmic energy compared to usually when we're doing these eclipses. They're like normal release, but this one is like a karmic release, is what I felt.
I wanted to actually know how you were experiencing this. What house was this eclipse in? Your 12th house.
First and
First and
second.
second. Okay. So how did that translate for you? How did that show up?
Definitely changing physical morning rituals and just rituals in general on my physical body. Really processing what's happening internally. I had some interesting things. I had like this crazy knot in my throat that I had to process. I was coughing a lot just because I was letting a lot of the things I needed to say come out. So I literally needled a little bit of my throat here during that time. again showing me that like my physical body um, was not purified, and so I had to kind of go through a purification cycle myself because things just needed to come out physically. I even got stung by a wasp the other day while I was working on my yard with my sugar cane. I was harvesting it, and it freaking like I felt like I like fell on the nail, and it like was like searing hot. And so I like yelled out loud, like, "What is that?" Like I was so, and it was so intense. Turns out I got this wasp stinger. I ended up having to basically surround the dragon with my needles to kind of release that. So my body went through some weird stuff where like maybe the universe like, hey, like you need to take care of your body. Here's what's gonna happen if you don't take care of your body. So a couple of things like that happen. Yeah, definitely felt a little bit like I needed to drink a lot of fluids those last couple of days. I think because as the emotions were released, like drinking the water helped me kind of flush everything out of my body. But I did a lot of just purification. I'm choosing to, I used to enjoy a lot of cannabis here and there, and now it's like, no, I took a huge break. I haven't been smoking, so even my lungs are constantly clearing all the gunk that's been building up, from my karmic cycles of like, yeah, I had like a good time like smoking a ton when I was kind of dealing with a lot of trauma. And now that I felt like I'm past this trauma, like Virgo's like, hey, you don't need that anymore. Let's just purify. And I was like, oh man. So really it's been a lot of like coughing up the lungs to kind of like clear up the lungs for me to feel a lot more oxygen. So that's been coming up. I've definitely not been eating as crappy as I used to. For some reason, like sugars and looking at sugars like is like to me like poison again. Like because the last couple of months I was kind of indulging, in some sugar, some candy, some chocolates. For some reason I was just like life is good. But this Virgo season, I was like, Charlie, life could be better if you just were a little purified and clean internally. So I took that to heart and really kind of cleaned out my system for the last couple of days. A lot of herbal, I took marshmallow root, elderberry, y'all, are really two great tonics and herbs to take for your lungs. So that's kind of what I was dealing with is healing my lungs. I'm doing a lot more Tai Chi Qigong rather than the heavy lifting exercise that I'm so used to because it's too hot. It's too hot for me to be lifting so crazily. So it kind of remind me, hey, just open up your body and stretch your body out so that you can take in more of this beautiful, energy. Because I feel like by eating such unhealthily, I felt like I was just now filled with crap in my body and like spirit's like, hey, how are you gonna like connect to spirit when you're filled with so much crap? So I was like, fine, spirit, I'll do the work. And it's been a few withdrawal symptoms, but now I feel a lot better past the symptoms, and I feel like I'm still not moving as fast as I was, but I feel better, and even just asleep. I don't know if because I'm detoxing less or what, but definitely feel a little physically unstable, but like moving forward, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's so crazy that you say you've been coughing because I have actually been coughing, and the funny thing is, my coughing is only at night.
Mm. Okay, so yin coughing.
Yin coughing together with insomnia.
Okay.
I mean, the coughing is actually while I'm sleeping, so I do get some sleep. But I'm saying I'm struggling
Oh, okay.
to for that yang to go back into the body during the night and the yin to come out. That yang is trying to escape. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, you're talking now about, getting all these messages about detoxing and quitting smoking and quitting sugars and stuff. I've been getting the same message, but it's just not as easy for me, Charlie. Like, the smoking, I've obviously tried to cut down. But I mean, like, for instance, this morning, if I'm doing an Aries workout, I have to smoke before an Aries workout. Like, I just, it's enabling me to enjoy the workout. If I don't smoke before that workout, I'm going to absolutely hate it, and therefore it's more likely that I just won't do it. So this is the predicament I'm in currently with God, where I'm like, how are we going to get me off the smoking? I don't know how we're going to do this, because really it's not so much, I mean, God will disagree with me. He'll say it's addiction, but I feel like it's not so much addiction, rather than fuck, man. I enjoy the stuff more when I'm smoking. Like, when I wake up in the morning, there's nothing I love more than having a smoke before my workout. After my workout, I shower, and in that first cup of tea after my shower, I have a smoke before I start working. And it really just, it's like the highlights of my day, and it just lights up my entire day and lights up all the work that I do. So I'm really struggling with that, but I have been getting the same messages. Where I made some progress is, me and candy, bro. I I have made some progress. I have cut down on candy significantly, and the evidence is there that my pants are a little bit looser, little bit. So excited about that. But yeah, I've been struggling. For me, this eclipse was very much around sorting out my daily routine. I've been struggling with my daily routine, and I haven't yet put the changes into effect yet, but it's like you can see those changes on the horizon. And it's the same, we were talking about the abundance previously when we said we don't feel like Jupiter in Cancer has quite kicked in yet. I still feel like Jupiter in Cancer hasn't kicked in yet, but the point is I can see that abundance on the horizon for the first time, even though it hasn't actually arrived yet. So I'm like you, I'm moving forward slowly.
Yeah. So I know that it's happening in your sixth house, right? And that's why daily routines, right? Versus for me, what's happening in the first house. So it's a lot of this like personal development and just
Oh, and physical health.
exactly physical
Yeah.
health. So that's kind of what like really like triggered me to go, okay, like this is for my health. This is not for like anything, routines. I mean, yes, because also the health and Virgo, it is kind of that routine space. So we can definitely kind of say it's connected. But, for me, it was just like my personal health, my vitality. And so I am kind of really feeling that vitality change. So, and I have not been in a really consistent routine since my father passed because I've been in a new home. I mean, I've been in the same home, but in a new home, if you all understand, right? Because I went from like being a tenant in the space to being like the one running the house, and that's changed my routines. But even now, like I don't know what my routines are because my dad used to wake up in the morning to do all the yard work, and it's like I'm not waking up at 5 in the morning to do yard work, Dad. So I have to find time to do the yard work. But sometimes when I have the time, it's like broad daylight, it's like sun is beaming down on me. That's usually not a good time to do yard work because they say actually you do it in the morning when it's much cooler in the morning. Also, when you water them in the morning. You don't water them when it's broad daylight when all the water evaporates. So for me, it's like, how do I fit this into my schedule? And it's like, nope. Like right now, it's not about routines for me. It is about my health. Because if I feel good, then I can keep doing anything that I want to do. If I don't feel good, I'm just not gonna do it. So that's been this like process for me, and this is how all of you understanding like where an eclipse happens in your house, because just like you see, like both Lilith and I, we're not having the same experience, yet we have the same theme of changing and being healthy, right? But she's doing it through her daily habits while I'm doing it through my like personal being and my physical health, and that just shows how beautiful that we're all experiencing things together, but in a slightly personal
Well, Charlie,
space. So I love,
I mean, I
yeah,
think the point is Virgo is the routine thing, right? And it's in your first house of physical. So I mean, I don't want to bring the bearer of bad news here, and I'm sure you know this already. But the reality is, having the routine around your physical health is what's going to bring the optimum results.
right, exactly. But that to me, it's more like to get that health, right? I'm gonna go and change my routine versus if it was my sixth house, change my routine to get to
Yeah.
the health, right? And that's kind of what I realized. It's like I just couldn't make up because what I was doing before is I was setting up routines. I was like, this routine is not working for me, right? But today I was like, no, like what routines will help so I
Yeah.
feel good.
No, it's tough coming up with a routine. I mean, that's the point. I am. It was in my sixth house, and I'm still like, I can see this routine is not going to work going forward into that abundance that I see up ahead, but I haven't quite managed to change it yet. What I do have is I have things that I do every day where I'm struggling, and this is the Pisces side, the Pisces influence on the Virgo, is I'm not able to do those things consistently at the same time every day.
Wow. Okay.
So, like,
Yeah.
I'll work out every day, but I'm not going to work out, say, every day at 8 a.m. in the morning. Some days I'll work out 8 a.m., some days 11 a.m. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like the workout is there, but in terms of, fixing that routine and really more like, because of the insomnia, trying to shift my day earlier has been a challenge.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, totally. And then we also have Mars in Scorpio happening, right? And so Mars in Scorpio kind of brings a new element where we've been in Mars in Libra, which had a really beautiful trine going on. And so, like, the air of information, like getting news, communicating with other people was nice. But now I feel like this Mars in Scorpio is kind of let's talk about some deep shit, right? And I feel like it's preparing us to kind of have this deeper conversation about like what shadows are we still not really addressing, because Mars in Scorpio brings a lot of transformative energy. And so right now I feel like as we've been like getting insight of what we should be doing, I feel like Mars in Scorpio is going to take this whole like obsessive version of it and go, okay, I'm just going to do this like crazy and like just stay focused and laser focused, which could be fun, could be weird, could be interesting.
Yes, here's the kicker. Here is the kicker. So there's a full moon happening on the 7th of October. That full moon is at 14 degrees Aries. But here's what's all going on around that full moon. So, basically, at the same time as the full moon, Mercury enters Scorpio. So we've got both Mars and Mercury then in Scorpio. And then there's also a
Okay.
yod, once again, pointing to Mercury from Uranus and Neptune.
Okay.
So, with all that energy of Mercury and Mars in Scorpio, I would say that is some heated communication or some intense communication that's happening over there around that time. And the point is, it's really about harmonizing that heart and mind. There's a conflict there, I feel, between the heart and mind because it's happening at 14 degrees Aries. And the point is, if you do not harmonize that heart and mind, then I would say those intense communications are going to have adverse consequences.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's very important that you don't just speak impulsively and speak from the mind or from the ego to prove you're right, and speak from the heart. And I think that will be the best way to get through that full moon, because I think it's going to be quite intense given all that fire energy, and it's
Yeah.
almost like fire and water. It's like steam once again.
Yeah, but again, I feel like the air quality, one of the negative side effects of air quality is that you get overwhelmed of information. So you could be getting actually both real information and disinformation. And this is where speaking from a headspace, logical, but if you're getting misinformation, you're actually speaking on fallacies of facts. Versus actually when we're speaking from our heart, it is more like our opinion about how we feel about what is happening, right? And I feel like it's such a very important conversation just because, we're kind of in Code's Destiny, but in the Code's Destiny, like a lot of things happen in the last eclipse where like a major global thing happened where, Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And I felt like there was way too much information and probably not enough real information about what happened. And because of that, everyone is choosing to speak about the information they're receiving, and it's causing more people to kind of like continue the conversation when there's false information given. So then everyone is kind of having this chaotic, like, I think this, I think that, but it's like you're thinking, but you're not getting the right information. Versus actually when we're coming from the heart space, there's a much deeper like opinion about what you're feeling. It's like, hey, it's okay that we don't know the facts, But like, how do we feel? Yeah, we feel shitty that like someone died, right? And we're having this conversation that like justifying death or not, and that's silly because that's based on like we don't know the facts yet. We don't know the facts. I don't care what you guys say. It's only been less than a month. There's no facts yet. So please like don't make up things based on facts or no facts you don't know. And that's why like right now it is like you said, we have to go deeper into our heart space and speak from a space of how our heart feels and personal opinions rather than creating false grand like I believe all this is because of that. Like that's too grand. That's not you. None of you guys, unless you guys were literally there, like we cannot be starting conversation out of like misinformation because that just then creates more and more unclear things to happen. And that's why like for me too, like I'm choosing to like be my own heart space and say, hey, I have nothing to say in my personal space. I'm still going through so much shit. I have nothing to say about this.
Well, I mean, with this full moon, ain't nobody convincing anybody. So that's what I'm saying. Nobody, you're not going to convince anybody of your point of view, and that's where that Aries Libra axis comes in. It's going to be you versus them, and what you really need to do is, like we said, follow the heart and see how you can resolve this harmoniously. Libra is all about harmonious, harmonious and balanced relationships, right? So I think this will be the key into navigating that full moon and getting the best out of it.
Yeah, and Aries is personal. So don't make this into a global issue, y'all. Like, as much it is global, yes, but like it is personal first. So like if you're not dealing with your own personal boundaries and you're too busy thinking about all these other people, you're actually not in alignment because right now it is kind of telling us that it is this like everybody and you, right? And it's like, no, like focus on you. Moon in Leo, a moon in Aries, full moon means like understand what you need first. Because right now, if you're having trouble at home and you're like trying to pay bills and then you're talking about this bigger situation, it's not actually resolving or dealing with any of your personal issues. I think what people are dealing with is the projection of how they feel onto this bigger situation rather than like just say how you feel and process how you're feeling personally rather than trying to be like my personal issue is a collective issue. No, it's not. No, it's not. Deal with your own shit first.
Well, I mean, this with Mars and Mercury both in that Scorpio, so that Scorpio is adding heat and pressure to the situation, like something's stuck and it won't move. That's why I said, ain't nobody convincing
Yeah.
anybody of anything this full moon. It's not happening.
And Scorpio tends to have this like resentful, vengeful in the negative side of Scorpio. We don't want to be in that space. We want to be in the transformative space. What can this experience transform me into a better person? Okay, let's not get stuck into the vengeful. The Scorpio wants to sting the shit out of everything because it's so angry. This is where, as in full moon in Aries, process that anger yourself. Do not start projecting, attacking other people. Because once this full moon goes away and you've been attacking other people, guess what the karma will do? It'll come back to you tenfold, right? So it's not a good time for you to project your own issues, but really internally process what's happening.
Well, I think what will happen with that full moon is you'll lose that relationship. I mean, I'm not only speaking now about romantic relationships, I'm talking about friends, business, whatever it is, where you are going to not be speaking from the heart, you're speaking from the mind, you're trying to convince, you're trying to prove your right ego. I think it can irreparably damage some relationships. So it's definitely worth paying attention to, yo.
Yeah, and if you want an idea of what's happening, look at how many people are like canceling each other out for what they've said now on TV,
Exactly.
and like companies are canceling, and then people don't like what the companies did, so they cancel, and you guys are just canceling each other. Like what? You guys, like nothing has happened yet you guys are
It's a shit show out there. It's a shit show.
exactly. So that's very important for us to kind of pay attention to that, y'all.
So we'll go deeper into that Scorpio energy in real talk, but I just wanted to do one last alignment that is pretty relevant. So on the 13th of October, we've got the sun goes to 20 degrees Libra. At that point in time, Venus enters Libra and opposes Neptune. at 0 degrees Aries. So this is going to look like I would say, that Venus opposing Neptune, this is going to look like a blackout. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like a complete blackout. But then later on that night, Pluto goes direct at 1 degree.
In Aries. Wow.
No. Pluto goes at 1 degree Aquarius. Yeah. And so that is like, the blackout is over and you carry on. But I feel like it's teaching you there that whole alignment and how that day happens, the 13th of October. I feel like it's also teaching us not to judge a book by its cover.
Yo, okay. I have some I have some projections that I think would happen. There's been this like deeper conversation in spiritual circles that we're preparing for solar flash, and the solar flash is supposedly is going to black out the internet, or the like we're going to have kind of like a blackout of the media or the internet or something going on the planet, just because like almost like an EMP pulse, where supposedly like 2-3 days of darkness is kind of prophesized. So like what you're saying of this blackout plus like Pluto going Aquarius, it's kind of like right before the Aquarian age really kicks in. It's like we're gonna get a quick like like reboot maybe. So that's interesting that you say that, because I think October is going to be a very interesting month for sure, to say the least.
Well, I'm not saying that there's going to be a literal blackout, so it's interesting that you say that. We'll watch this space. We'll see how it plays out. I was just talking like figuratively in each of our own, but that would be hilarious if that happens.
Yes.
But I feel like because it's teaching us not to judge a book by its cover, because it's really like, when that blackout occurs, it's like almost like disaster. It doesn't look good. But, sometimes like, for instance, if you have a business, right, and you're trying to sell a product direct to consumer, because wholesale cuts most of your profit away, okay? And you're like, no, I'm going to make a loss if I go wholesale. I'm going to I'm going to sell direct to consumer. But then things go wrong and you can't get your product out to the consumer. So whereas before you weren't open to wholesale, well, now the option is either you can't get it out to direct consumer, so then you must liquidate. So now like, oh, okay, wholesale is a better option. So now you open to wholesale. So it's like something is not looking good, but you need to really be open with what you can open up to here, and see where it goes, because it could actually turn out good for you. That's what I mean by don't judge a book by its cover. It might seem like it's negative at first, but no, just be open and adjust, and you should be fine.
Because Virgo is all about perfection, right? Like I expect this and I want it to be perfect. And what happens is like eclipses in Virgo are saying, let go the perfection. I have better gifts for you, right? Because Virgo has this access with spirit, and it's almost like actually Virgo, when it gets caught up thinking that it knows what is perfect for it, it ends up not being what it needs. And then like God will come in, break that perfection and say, no, this is better. Look, right? And so when that Virgo experience happened, the eclipse happened, people were like, no, I thought like spirituality was this. And I'm like, nope, that's not spirituality. And so now I think that when we are going to get the judge a book by its cover experience, we're going to be, oh, I remember this. I experienced like some kind of version of this in September. So now hopefully we've learned our lessons and we are prepared for the actual experience that is coming to us, that's going to look different than we expect, because we are all, I think, growing together to kind of like be more in tune with what's available for our greatest good, versus before I think we were so used to like believing in the physical reality, right? The matrix we talk about, where like, oh, I need a 9-to-5 job to feel safe. And maybe God's like, no, actually you should be selling your own stuff, and you should be an entrepreneur. And so because that's what you're coded for, and maybe 9-to-5 job made you secure, but you hated those jobs. So maybe now an opportunity will show up that say, hey, these are the jobs you should be doing, or this is kind of the experience you should be doing, to give you an opportunity to actually see that experience not as like what you expected, but maybe something the better that you could work with, but that's not what you initially thought.
No, exactly. Exactly. So let's go into keeping it real.
Yeah. So let's do this all. So yeah, I say let's just go right into the real talk. I think there's just a lot that we can definitely share in our own personal experiences to kind of round out the codes of destinies.
Let's talk about the intense Scorpio energy, because that's still going to be very much in play by the time this episode is released. So I wanted to talk all things taboo and sex.
Okay.
Mars and Mercury in Scorpio doesn't get better than that. I know you've had a lot of experience with that, with what you're doing in your healing practices, and where you headed, and I think it would be great for you to share that, Charlie, and tell me again and tell me more about it, because we haven't gone into a lot of detail anyway about it. But
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
excited to hear it.
Yeah, so I have a natal Mars in Scorpio in 5 degrees, and then it is
In the
close
third
to
house, yo.
in the third house. So it is this Mercury Mars conjunction, right? And then I have Uranus also hanging out 22 degrees Scorpio. So my Mars in Scorpio, and I've had learned to develop that a lot further as I get older. When I was younger, I was more of the like I had not necessarily a intense vengeful energy, but I had a lot of resentment that I kind of held on to. And then when it was time to like say something, like it was so piercing that it would like hurt people because they're like, "Wow, why did you hold this in so much, Charlie?" It was like, "Well, that's because like I really wanted to like be sure that that's how I felt," and I think that made me hold on to a lot of negative energy that I thought I needed to like. It's almost like to work out, like for me to work out, I needed to like remember how angry I was so that when I was working out and I could do that last 10th push, you're like, well, remember that time he say shit to me, oh fuck that, and you're like going past that, your personal record, you're like, yeah. And so you almost like, I was really driven by this like anger that I was holding because I felt like it was making me stronger when I would work out. But then what would happen is like when I was speaking my truth, it came out so sharp that I was cutting myself too. Like I was literally making myself sound like a really shitty person. I was like, "Yo, I'm not this bad, am I?" And that's when I realized that like the Mars in Scorpio does not have to like sharpen the knife all day long, waiting for that time when it's finally get to cut someone. But I realized is actually by speaking what is hidden much sooner, it'll feel softer because then you're just like bringing up something that needs to be addressed. It doesn't need an answer, but if I haven't addressed it for 5 years, it'll feel very, very intense when I finally talk about it. And that wasn't very good for my energy. I'm a very, Leo rising, Virgo stellium. I love to share and talk about things. And so my Mars in Scorpio had to learn actually that unlike Mars and Aries, where they're just going to say whatever comes out of their impulse, I had to learn that like I had to see the whole picture first to kind of understand why was I feeling that personally, so that I wasn't
Well, Mars
projecting.
in third house still does that, because it's
Yes.
still Aries.
Yes. However, because it has that Gemini field of like the duality, that it will take time to see both sides before it makes that call. Where before Mars and Aries on top of like another sign that was very direct, I was very direct. But in being that in Gemini house, you kind of have to look at both sides before you speak up. It was when I spoke up before I saw the light and the dark of that conversation that I would actually get in trouble. Because there's always something that was like, well, I think blah, 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 blah. And they're like, no, we did that, Charlie. I was like, oh, you did? Okay, I misspoke because I didn't hear both sides. So actually, I learned that like I have to hear both sides or hear the other side of the story. And then I could kind of like let my Mars kind of say, I see some blind spots in this conversation, even though I'm aware of both sides, right? And that's not an easy like if you're not born with it, it's not going to be natural for you to like hold your tongue and wait for the right moment to say what you need to say. Where for me, I had to learn to cultivate that so that now, as a healer, and what's really funny is I used to say, like, I used to see what people could do better, or they had shadows, and I would just like say, tell them right away, oh, your shadows is ABC. And then we get mad at me, Charlie. They're like, Charlie, I didn't ask you for you to psychoanalyze me. I was like, oh, my bad.
Hey, yo, you've learned the
I
law of
thought you wanted
consent
this.
subsequently, haven't you, Charlie?
Yeah. Well, so now I get paid to psychoanalyze people. And so I learned that actually,
Yeah, but so now that's the point. They're asking you now.
yeah, exactly. And so that's where like my healing modalities really took a turn for the better, because I realized that like I can harness and cultivate this energy of speaking about people's shadow, my shadow, people's shadow, everybody's shadows. And a lot of these taboos is about sex, right? Because Scorpio is around sex. So if you guys didn't know, I studied acupuncture, but my capstone project was erectile dysfunction, right? So it's basically about dysfunctional sex. And
Mars
so
in
that
Scorpio.
in Scorpio. So it was really brilliant. Even Spirit guided me to that topic, because at first I didn't know what I was going to write my capstone. And then everything around me was around male fertility. And like, can men have babies? And are men fertile enough? Is the sperm working? Can they even get it up to have a baby with? And like all these topics came up, and I was like, I don't remember having all this conversation about sex before. And so I had to start paying attention that maybe sex is a taboo conversation that people don't talk about. Turns out men never talk about erectile dysfunction. So a lot of times when it is sexual problems in relationship, men don't talk about their sexual problems. We have a ton of porn going on in the culture today, so no wonder a lot of men have erectile dysfunction. I've run into a lot of men, and I've run into a lot of situation now where I'm involved with like releasing entity attachments. So a lot of times when we watch a lot of porn, we have this succubus energy that gets infiltrated into our chakras, specifically the sacral chakra. So I've been dealing with this for a long time, but not necessarily realized that it's kind of something I have to talk about, because no one wants to talk about. And even in our school, when we were joking like, Charlie, what's your topic, what are you going to be? Erectile dysfunction. Everybody laughing goes, oh, and then they sent me all these penis jokes, and I was laughing going, oh, that's funny, penis jokes. Wait, why are we laughing at penis problems? This is why no one talks about penis problems, is because we all make fun of it, so the guys just never talk about it. Oh yeah, haha, funny, broken penis, haha. Guess what? Half of those people that are laughing probably had erectile dysfunction that they want to talk about,
Okay,
and
well,
so
I'm laughing, and I definitely don't have erectile dysfunction, just for the record.
right. But again, like even women are laughing about it, but no women are telling their husband or their boyfriend to go see a doctor for it, right? There's usually all kinds of issues, because it doesn't get brought up, right?
Well, I think it is a delicate topic, Charlie, because I think a lot of women, if I think about, if I was in that situation, it's not necessarily easily brought up, because you don't want to, is it emasculate the man or
Yeah.
demasculate? What's the word?
Demasculate, emasculate man, yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to take away his or decrease his masculinity, which obviously there's a high risk with that conversation if he hasn't done
Yeah.
his shadow work and he's not comfortable in himself. So it is
Right.
quite, I think it is quite a tricky subject to bring up.
Yeah. However, let me turn it around. How often do we talk about women's lack and an inability to have children? How often do we talk about women's period?
I think much more often.
All the
Yeah,
time. We
exactly.
talk about
Yeah.
women not being able to have children and women bleeding all day long, all the time, every month, right? So that conversation is constantly happening. Yet, and so usually there's usually a place of compassion for women who are struck. I mean, we won't have the deeper conversation of why doctor men don't care about women's menstrual cycle issues, but it's a very common topic that shows up in my clinic when women come in, and we do have to ask about the menstrual cycle, but we never ask about men's sexual functions, right? And so that's again this like taboo for men, but not taboo for women. Yet, ironically, when we talk about fertility, we usually say 100% of the problem is for the women because they're the ones not being able to have the child. Yet, we never talk about the men's sperm possibility that it could be the sperm that's causing the miscarriage or the baby to not be able to come to full term. So these are actually very common problems actually in fertility, that miscarriage is connected to the men. Versus if the egg is able to get fertilized, it is connected to the womb and to the woman. However, if it has a miscarriage because the DNA is not able to fully create a child, it is the sperm. It is the DNA of the sperm. So and then we talk about IVF, right? And guess who gets to pick the sperm in IVF? The doctor. Right? Versus before, when we're having children, it is you as a man putting that sperm in, and you hope the best sperm wins, right? Not in IVF. You're gonna get, I kind of joked about it, but it was like, put me in, coach. I can do it. I can get a baby going. And like, you're gonna have a fucked up sperm because the doctor's pulling all the sperm and putting into the egg, right? So we don't know what kind of genetic and information. And so I think just in general, this conversation, I find it very difficult for me to even find patients. And so actually, ironically, what I do is I work with the women to get them to talk to their men, to have the men come in because their partners want them to come in. Guys and women, unfortunately, men do not go to the doctors by themselves unless they broke something or they're bleeding out of some orifice. They will never come to the doctor's office. Every time I used to work at the clinic, okay, at school, it was always a dude going, yeah, well, I have these problems, but my wife told me to come in. I don't think I have a problem. Okay, let's talk about it. And it turns out he has all these problems. He goes, you don't think that's a problem? No, but my wife told me I had to come in. That's funny, but that's not, y'all. And I think this is this deeper conversation of like, why why is sexual health such a taboo conversation? Because it puts a lot of stress on both the men and the women who want to have children, right? And so this conversation of sexual, even just, I think the whole cheating culture is because both men and women may not be sexually healthy, that they're maybe going outside of the relationship to look for some kind of sexual gratification. So this topic is such a big deal. I've more recently been okay to talk about it because it's literally how I find patients. However, even for me, like people would joke and say, people say that you study you study the research that you have a problem with. That means that people all thought I had erectile dysfunction. I was like, no, like I don't have the problem. However, if I did, I'd have all the tools I needed to fix it. So, again, I don't really need to talk about my own personal issues. However, I knew that actually I was helping other men and they were telling me in secret, hey, thank you for helping me. Like, I didn't know who to talk to. But like coming in, I did some needle work. I tested my needle stuff. Like I tested the stuff that I studied. Turns out that I could get an erection for someone who hadn't had an erection for months overnight. So it just shows that,
Using
acupuncture can
liver 8.
a few more than liver 8. I don't think liver
Yeah,
8
but
is
liver
the
8 is one of the points, obviously.
one, but Rent 4 is the major one, y'all, because Rent 4 is a conception vessel, and if you point it downwards to down to your sacral, then you're
To the
actually sending,
local area.
yeah, then you're sending blood down there, right? So liver 8 is coming liver from it's blood coming from the bottom up.
Right,
But
yeah.
usually you have more blood up here, so you're pushing the blood downwards into the sacral area. And so you don't do regular Ren 4, you do Ren 4 pointing downward. You're basically plunging.
But so you'd want to do both to really get all the blood in
There's a
there.
few
I mean,
more.
if you're having problems,
Spleen 6 is very important because a lot of
yeah,
times
nourishing
it,
yin.
it- yeah, because if you have the power to get the blood there, but you have no blood, then you're not going to get an erection, right?
Exactly.
So it's
Yeah.
multiple situation. Spleen 6 is also not just for erectile dysfunction, but it's actually for sperm health. So because your fluid is probably not good enough, so that yin is what creates the jing that creates the sperm, right? So there's this multiple conversation around it. However, there's like a lot of really good points before you have to go to all the crazy pills or the pumps or all the other, you know, things that people sell out there for erectile dysfunction. So that's kind of like my real talk about Mars in Scorpio that I'm learning to speak about because it is in my third house. And then that's why I have these podcasts here talking about taboo subjects, because Mars in Scorpio loves to talk about taboo subjects. And I've learned to actually accept that it is part of my own code. So the fact that it's happening now, maybe for the next Mars in Scorpio season, for the next month, I'm just going to talk about sex and penis all day long.
Well, I was picking up your telepathic vibes, Charlie. But what I wanted to say is, in terms of the sex, is from an energetic perspective,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of times we've seen in clinics, there's a lot of times it's more subtle concepts that people don't necessarily realize. For instance, sometimes people can't get pregnant, and then you're like, just go on vacation. And then they go on vacation and they come back pregnant because they were just overstressed. And so that overstress just creates this inhospitable environment, maybe coming from both ends, because a lot of the times it's the man that's also a lot more stressful. So that's the one side of it. And then another side of it is, with the cheating, I don't think people realize, with OnlyFans and as you say, the cheating and everything that's going on these days, people don't realize how sacred sex is actually. And, I mean, especially on my Kundalini journey, I've come to understand this because, the point is that sexual act is an exchange of energy, and it is such a significant exchange of energy that not only are you exchanging energy with that person, but you're even taking on some of their karma. So specifically, if you are, I know you're doing Taoist chi cultivation practices, which starts off with the sexual cultivating that sexual energy. And the point is, you know, I don't know how the Taoist side works, but at least how I've established it on my Kundalini journey so far. Like, if you are exchanging energy at a critical time on your spiritual journey like that, it can definitely take your spiritual journey backwards. If you look, for instance, with my Kundalini, which is more like what they would say in Taoist, which is like the chi accidents or the chi surges that they try and prevent, that will be exponential if you have to, through an intense Kundalini awakening, start sleeping around and not only that, sleeping around with people that are not spiritually advanced than you, because that chi or that Kundalini can wrap around their spine. I mean, the energy merges. So if you're going through a Kundalini awakening, that Kundalini wraps around that person's spine and basically rips their life apart. So these are real things that people need to be taking into account, because the consequences are real. And if you don't believe me, just try it out for yourselves. Try it out for yourselves. And don't come back to me, because I will say I told you so.
Yeah. And that's very important to also to understand that like sex is the eighth house, and the eighth house is actually when you're merging souls and you're merging DNA. And so people don't realize that like actually when we are having sexual intercourse, you're exchanging fluids. That means that the women also will have the man's like genetic information in her for a few weeks to a few months to a few years, right? And so if you are having multiple partners, guess what? Like their DNA is still involved in your physical being, right? And that's why it's very important for women to learn to keep that sacredness, because what's happened today is for some reason the sexual revolution that the women experience is actually not a liberation, but actually it's caused a lot of problems now for women. And I could go deeper into this, because then we talk about birth control, right? And then birth control, what it does, it changes your chemical reaction and so you will smell and see men differently, because when you are holding your menstruation cycles back, in birth control, then you're really attracted to men that don't want to have babies ever, right? And so what happens when you get off birth control and you're like, hey, I want my man to have a baby with me now, you're like, you'll actually realize that that man may smell, may taste, may be different, because suddenly your chemical changes back to like, I want to be pregnant, and it looks for a mate that wants to be pregnant with you. And if your mate this whole time never wanted to have children with you, that's still the same energy you're getting. And so suddenly you don't want to have that partner with you. So end up a lot of women who marry their partners while they're on birth control, end up not many want to have children with that partner. And that could be what happens with the cheating, because suddenly you smell another man who might smell better because their chemicals are built to want to have children, where for you, you may not. So it's very important for us to both physically but energetically, right? I've done so much pranic healing and reiki on people who like were just broke up with their partners, and a lot of times you'll find cords in their sacral because you've had sexual connections, that you naturally are going to think about them, feel connected to them. So if they're having sexual connection with another person, you're going to feel that. And that is why I think a lot of women tend to feel no when their man sleeps with another woman, because this is called quantum entanglement, y'all. It's science. Quantum entanglement is more deeper when you're exchanging genetics and fluids. So now when that man goes with another woman, you've opened up yourself to that woman's energy through him. So women are going to feel it. So that is why, like, and now you're talking about spiritual awakening and having your spiritual energy being fully activated and on, you're going to get super psychic. So you definitely don't want to be picking up, a partner's like promiscuity, right? And that's kind of the deeper conversation that Lilith was really talking about, is don't mess around. Women, your womb is sacred. And men too, actually. We should be cultivating our what we call jing, our sperm, our fluids. Because in Taoist practice, when the fluid is full, actually the fluid creates energetic vortexes and like something like a kundalini, where it's your chi that's rising up your spine and allows you to heal your spine, heal your body, because this jing now can be used to kind of build up energy. So that's what we call cultivating chi, cultivating energy through this like a spinal tap, right? And that's why, if you notice, like porn always, even in general, everyone in porn talks about, it's all about letting go your fluids. They love seeing, there's so many words for fluids in your face, fluids on different parts of your body. Like, they want the men's fluid. And that's why, if you guys all know this, you've heard it before. Why do sports and fighters never masturbate or have sex the night before their fight? Is because they would deplete their jing, their vital force, their yang goes down, and now they're not bringing their 100% power into the sports, into the fight, and so they are depleted. That's why we as men should learn to actually, we can have sexual intercourse, but don't release your fluid until you're ready to have a child. And that's kind of the deeper conversation of why erectile dysfunction is such a big problem today, because you're constantly depleting your energy, and so by the time you're ready to have intercourse, you just don't have the energy for it.
Well, do you know how I actually know this, Charlie? I didn't do research. God actually explained this to me because what happened. So obviously on my Kundalini journey, he has not. I haven't had access to sex, and so the point is, when I came to South Africa, South African men are on another level. I love South African men. They're so manly. So I got here and it's like, oh, I'm surrounded by them again. And they all want me and I all want them. And God has a new title for me. It's called cock blocker, because he wasn't having it. He wasn't having it. All parties were willing, but he made it impossible. And so I would have these conversations. I'm like, I don't understand. Why are you doing this? Like, why? And so he explained that situation to me about the Kundalini wrapping around the spine and everything. So I don't know. Now I need, I guess, the next thing is maybe he will let me do it with somebody that's spiritually advanced. So now I'm on the lookout for one of those, it seems. I don't know. I don't know what my options are at this stage.
Good luck. Good luck. In that topic,
Huh?
this is a very interesting conversation. Yeah, in that topic, finding spiritual men is a funny conversation because I am in a lot of these circles here that we say we're spiritual, but again, I feel like everything is spiritual. We don't need to be, in those circles of spirituality. But a lot of times, I run into a lot of people talking about, oh, I want a twin flame, oh, I want a spiritual man, blah 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 blah. And I look around and go, you guys know that these spiritual circles are filled with women, right? Where are you going to find these men if the men's aren't showing up? So a
Well,
lot of time
exactly.
what's happening, yeah, because we are still living in a world where um, in spiritual circles, unless, and I say this very loosely because I don't think it's necessarily spiritual, but like only religious people are having stable incomes. Usually in spiritual circles, they're not necessarily having a stable income as much as like someone who wants to be a Western doctor, a Western lawyer. I say Western just because in East Asian, like it's a different type, but you're not going to get a lot of these spiritual men because they're doing really well making their money from being very 3D, right? So unless they're being called to leave that space to be of service to God, which is what we call the spiritual awakening, the mass awakening to spirit again, you're gonna have to wait for the big one, or you're gonna have to wait for this one guy who finally like shows up in your field. So that's why I feel like women definitely do your work, but definitely get more men to show up in these circles of trauma healing. Because if they're not healing their trauma, they're not accessing their spiritual gifts because their trauma locks them into the 3D ego. I need to have this job to make a ton of money.
No, but I mean, I hear what you're saying that there's spirituality in everything, but no, the explanation that I got was an advanced spiritual being. In other words, somebody that's done the work. Because otherwise, when the Kundalini is going to wrap around the spine, no matter who it is. But it's only an advanced spiritual person who will be able to deal with the after effects. So no, in that sense, that's why, yeah, they're non-existent. I'm here to confirm because I've been looking. But yeah, because they have to have already done the work. I don't know. Charlie is in another country, so what to do? He's the only spiritually advanced being I know.
With that said too, I'd like to add one more final piece to this, just because it is a very common thing I've run into, and this is a very big topic right now as well, because we left the stellium in Pisces, and so we experience a lot of this. But a lot of times when women just want a spiritual man who knows all the spiritual stuff, what happens is you get one out of like 100 women who are going through this deeper work. So then what happens is you got like the man who has a list of women that they can be available to because they are going through this spiritual and they are advanced souls. However, and I say that with an asterisk too, because this is how sex cults are formed. And I say this because, not to diss anybody, but we have to bring this conversation up because there's a big conversation on the internet. But Aubrey Marcus, okay? A lot of women say, oh my God, he's a spiritual man. He has all these podcasts about spirituality. He's done so much plant medicine. He talks like he's spiritual, right? And so he gets a partner, he gets a wife, but then, like, so the wife thinks she's hit the jackpot, right? He thinks he's hit the jackpot. But then again, how many other beautiful women who are on their spiritual journey and doing the work? A lot more than men. So, so now other women are going to look at him and go, look, there's not that many spiritual men around. So maybe can I just like join up with your group and like be a thruple? I can't believe this is a word, but a thruple is a new word where, it's one man to many. It's basically now the modern day harem, right? Like you're
In
gonna
some
see.
cultures, that's been around for a while.
Yeah, yeah, but we can talk about the side effects of it, right?
Oh, I mean, I'm not saying I agree with it.
Yeah, yeah. But some of it were done under the table too. That like at the time, it was few men who owned everything. So obviously, like a woman who wants a man who has wealth, they're going to see, and you see it today. It's usually a lot of wealthy men who are also kind of probably sleeping around because the women are looking for like, I want a wealthy man. Well, that's the only thing on your checklist. Then you're probably gonna get tricked into like these men who may have it but don't necessarily want you to be a partner. And so all I'm saying is it's very we have to all be very careful because we've run into a lot of places where there was a lot of like people feel like spiritual awakening is also like being sexually free and liberated, which is not. Actually, we should be harnessing our sexual energy to do our greater spiritual mission. And please be careful that not all the women are chasing the same dude and it becomes a harem, it becomes a sexual cult. This is why we should be push. I tend to push a lot of water signed men who have cancers, Pisces, maybe not Scorpio, but yes, Scorpio in their charts, to go into doing at least Reiki or pranic healing, because then it opens the door to their spiritual mission, the spiritual endeavors, and that brings more men into the space. So now not all women are chasing one dude, but now more women have more men who are at least on their journey, because we can't expect all men to have advanced spiritual degrees right now because it's much easier to stick to like a really good job that is sucking your soul. So that's all I'm gonna say about that.
And hence I said God is cock blocking me right now because he's just like, there's nobody available for you. Nobody. Even those that are available, they're not available.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm like, thank you, God. Thank you. He's like, yo, you have to cultivate. You have to cultivate. So I'm cultivating.
I would have not we did not want to hear. And now Lilith has joined a super cult in South Africa. I'm just kidding.
Hey, are we gonna post this video? Are we gonna post this video on Pornhub?
So you're not the only person that's mentioned this to me. Everybody tells me that like, Charlie, you should go and advertise on Pornhub and OnlyFans. That's where you're gonna get these guys. I'm like, yeah, but I mean, are these guys looking to give up their porn addiction, right? Because if they're not, then I'm just gonna be fixing something they're gonna go break every night watching Pornhub, right? So again, like we have to go
I don't think
deeper.
everybody that watches porn is addicted to it.
Sure, fine. However, like, you know, I wouldn't mind trying just because I'm not gonna say no because it is kind of like the mission, right? The mission is to go find those who need it where they're at, and it's clearly on OnlyFans and Pornhub. So I totally get that. And maybe during Mars and Scorpio will happen. I don't know.
Well, that's Mars and Mercury in Scorpio right there.
Yeah, so it sounds like marketing. So maybe I will try. We'll see. But anyways, but I enjoy this topic a lot more than I used to because again, Mars and Scorpio took me a while to really claim that code of mine. And Uranus is like what you say, it's a good cock block for me. Like Uranus will like snap me into place because there's definitely places where I could easily have taken the Mars and Scorpio very darkly because it's only 5 degrees, so I'm like raw energy with that. So I've accidentally may have manipulated people here and there. So Uranus and Scorpio usually will like shock me into like morality, where and it's not like I also take a lot of immoral, but sometimes like yeah, like your sacral energies is talking to you, and you're like, well, yeah, let's do it, and then Uranus kicks in and goes, Charlie, we're here for the greater good, so be better. And then like, oh my goodness, like why do I have these wise men about sexual cultivation? Is because I've had past lives doing monk life. So I thought I could take this life to kind of really enjoy. But no, like my guys all came in and said, hey, Uranus in Scorpio 22 degrees. We don't fuck around with that sexual energy, Charlie. So I've been cock blocked too. So I totally get what you say. There's always these weird experiences that happen. You're like, she would have totally came home with me. But like for some reason, just all the energies.
Yeah, it's just how it happens. That's why I'm saying it's
Yeah,
God
it
doing the
totally
cock
does.
blocking. Because
Yeah.
all parties are in. They're all systems go. But
Yes. Yeah.
reality just doesn't allow it to happen for whatever
And
reason.
I'm a Virgo stellium. That is Virgo. Virgo to not to have sleeping around is a very Virgoan thing to do. So the fact that I have a Virgo stellium while I have a Mars in Scorpio has been this very interesting experience for me to find purity in sex, but yet not be like promiscuous.
Well, Virgo, it's funny that you did erectile dysfunction because Virgo is an infertile sign.
Well, yeah, but I think that it's a misdirection because it's not infertile. It chooses not to have partner or to have children. I believe it's a choice, Virgo, because it is part of the divine connection that Virgo is choosing to work for the divine. So they choose to have the non-priest life. Well, today priests and nuns are having sex, but
No, fine, but that choice is made before this life. It manifests in 3D as infertility.
right, and so literally the reason why is because I went into this because I had a couple of people. I had people joking around because there was these gay couples, and they're like, "Hey, would you donate your sperm to this gay couple?" And I jokingly said, "Ah, that would be such a Virgo thing to do, is to give my sperm to someone to have a baby so that I wouldn't have a baby."
This is the point. There's still infertility involved in the equation.
Right. Yeah. Right. But because also they couldn't be fertile because it was two women.
They're a gay couple. They can't have a baby, so infertile.
Yeah,
Whichever way you
exactly,
look at it.
exactly.
Together they're infertile.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Just
right.
in a different way, but yeah, same result.
So that's when I realized I had to check my own equipment because if I were to like basically give away my sperm to somebody to have children and it didn't work, I'd be so embarrassed that I was like, oh my god, I may have to like check to see if my equipment works. So maybe I'm just gonna go. And then literally when I decided my capstone, like the conversation of me like volunteering sperm was not a thing. They're like, no, Charlie, that's not what we wanted. We're joking around. We didn't really mean it. Like, we don't want to deal with this. Like, we don't want children this way. Like, oh, okay. And it turned out like suddenly like all the sex talk stopped after I picked my topic. So that's when I realized that synchronicity wanted me to pick this topic. However, like I experienced being a Virgo and possibly donating my sperm to an infertile couple. So that was super interesting and aligning to my own code. So so that's why Mars in Scorpio has been very interesting for me.
No, that's a pretty amazing journey, Charlie.
So we're both waiting for the best one while we're cultivating our sexual energy is really the summary to this topic, and you should be too, but we're not gonna judge you or anything. It just again, there's very much a lot of power in cultivating our sexual energy and not giving it away to everybody.
Yeah, I don't have choice. God's not giving me a
I know.
choice.
Yes, yes, and if you have God cock blocking, even better.
Well, I tell you, I'm not going to do it to myself. So best he does it because otherwise it ain't happening.
Yeah, you're an Aries rising. I know. You're like, what, God? You're like, God, I'm picking this, but you better keep me from doing the bad stuff because, like, I'm coded to like go for it.
Exactly. I am coded for that shit. Anyway.
So thank you for that real talk. It's as real as we could get.
I think that was the realest talk we've had uh, so far.
Yeah, yeah,
Thanks
yeah.
to Mercury and Mars in Scorpio.
Exactly. Right on time.
Should we go on over into sacred medicine? I mean, I'm sad to end this conversation because this is one of those where Charlie and I could talk like 5 hours straight and just touch the surface.
There's definitely more. We could definitely talk a lot. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But that's also Scorpio, right? It wants to go even deeper and deeper. But yeah, let's get into the sacred medicine now and have a deeper conversation about ways that we can heal ourselves, but we can also give you some advice in, some acupuncture points, some yoga or meditation or qigong to kind of support your energy during this collective movement. So a couple acupuncture points to kind of really address some of the wiry tension that we're having. Is liver 3 is a really good point again. Again, liver is really connected to the blood, to the cardiovascular. We even talked about liver 8 connected to your sacral. So that's why liver 3 is like a chill the fuck out point. Okay, we use it a lot. It's like the most used point. If you actually just press it yourself, is between your big toe and your second toe.
So that's the point that God is basically instructing us to use right now. Chill the fuck out, yo.
Yeah, chill the fuck out. Press that liver 3 point. It is basically the web part between the toe, the big toe, and the second toe. We usually needle that, but you could also do a little soft massage on that spot and just like massage downwards between the big toe and the second toe, because that will kind of like bring your energy downwards into the liver channel, into the ground, and that's why you can ground yourself by walking while you're doing liver 3. The liver 3s are very important for kind of calming you down. Also, GB34 is an overall relax all of your sinews, all of your muscles, all of the tension in your body. So GB34 is kind of right next to your knee to the lateral side. It's a little hard to describe, but you can see that it's kind of like next to
The head of the tibia.
tibia. Yes, it's a very important point, because it is kind of, it'll really help relax all of what we call the sinews, which is all the ligaments connected to the muscles. Because a lot of times it is not the muscle that is in pain, it is the ligament that's pulling on the bone. That's where you're feeling that pressure. And so if you're feeling a lot of joints being pulled, that's because the ligaments are really tight. So to relax those ligaments and also to relax the muscles that is connected to the ligaments will help kind of relieve that tension. So that's like a GB34 point. That's very helpful. And then one last point is Heart 7. I think Heart 7 for you all, and I'm probably going to do that tonight for myself, is to calm your shen, to calm your spirit so that the spirit can go back into the body. A lot of times when we have this full pulse and it's floating, it is kind of telling your spirit is literally floating above your energy. And so it's not feeling grounded. It's not feeling like it can go into the body. Because a lot of times the spirit has to go into the body, fall asleep, and then it leaves the body to go into the dream state. And so Heart 7 is a very good one where we had said earlier heart yin deficiency, because maybe the heart is running out of fluid, so it's not able to pump blood everywhere, and so sometimes it builds up this heat, and that heat is what we're feeling. And so when we wake up and we have all this heat, or we're like anxious, is because this heat is rising, and so our spirit is not feeling comfortable enough to go back to sleep. So that's some of the reasons why we run into insomnia. So those 3 points I would say, and Heart 7 is like right here under the wrist, but it has to be facing the pale part of the skin, not back here, the yang side. This is the yin side, and the heart you see is right down under here, and you kind of like point it down here, and it kind of activates your channel so that it kind of releases your heart to kind of relax also, so that the spirit goes in. So those are major 3 points that I would suggest for us in this sacred space. But Lilith also has some great things for us to learn.
Well, I know. I just wanted to add stomach 30. So the 2 points are not doing anything new. But guys, a lot of the times we will repeat these points because these points are so important. We're not here to teach you TCM. We're here to teach you which points you can use. And so, yes, a lot of the time we're going to be repeating the points, but we'll be using them in different contexts. So stomach 36 specifically, I mean, I know we spoke about split gene deficiency and digestion. It will help with that. But why I'm actually bringing it up is because it is a very grounding point. In this particular instance, it's going to allow the smooth flow of chi, enabling that, like Charlie has said, along with Heart 7, to calm the nervous system. And stomach 36 is also going to be able to, in this Libra season, it will help us to balance your daily rhythm. And when you can balance your daily rhythm, that also improves the harmony in your relationships as well. And then, of course, we've already spoken about fluids and everything. Spleen 6, important to nourish the yin, and also another grounding point. And then one last acupuncture point before we go on, because we've specifically been speaking about the harmonization of the mind and the heart, especially with Mercury and Mars in Scorpio with this upcoming full moon. So that would be PC6 will very much help. I mean, along with Heart 7, Charlie has already brought in Heart 7, but PC6 is another one that can also really help harmonize the heart and the mind, which I think is quite important in this time. So yeah, I'm also going to be doing those points myself, Charlie.
Yeah, and many of you guys know this point. This literally science uses this point a lot. Have you guys seen those nausea bands, right? And then they have a little magnet here, and then it's a band that when you get nauseous, you wear it, like when you go a lot of boating. Literally, if you do, actually, it's a lot smaller, but if you do like three fingers with, right, and right here, you'll find in between these two tendons, okay, you'll find a point here. That's stomach, that's PC6, okay? And you'll notice that when you wear these nausea band, you're wearing it right here, and that's where the magnet is. So this is spleen 6. So you can just massage this on both sides, okay? And that will kind of help with this upper body release.
And then if you're doing yoga and qigong, I think it's important to do gentle yoga and qigong at this time, because we've been so overwhelmed. We now want to stabilize. So that'll be a good thing. One of the practices which Charlie can go a little bit more deeper into, that's his field, is the microcosmic orbit, is one of the things that you can do to help with the stabilization. And it is also quite a gentle practice. I mean,
Yeah, it's a breathing practice that you have to match with visualization. So Qigong is actually adding visualization and breath work in your practice of moving energy. And so what you're doing is you're imagining energy going up the spine. And then what happens is it goes up the spine and here to your tongue. And then you want to touch your tongue to the roof of your mouth, closer to your teeth. Okay? Like this. And the tongue will send energy to around here, what we call the frenum, and then it sends energy down to the body, to the meridian called the conception vessel here in the front of your body, the torso. And so you take it in breath and you go up the spine, and then when you take the out breath, you send the energy down into what we call the solar plexus, which is near your umbilical cord, or some people say it's 2 centimeters above it or below it. I say use your navel as a place to store this energy. Just imagine around your navel. But what you want to do is basically imagine taking a deep breath in as the energy is moving up the spine, and then taking a breath out, the energy goes down into the belly. And then you keep doing that, do a few of those, probably a minute worth of that, and you'll find that energy stabilizes. You'll suddenly feel a lot of energy in your stomach, which will warm up. Solar plexus is where you go and take action in the world. So you want to fill that energy up. So this microcosmic orbit is basically just allowing this energy of the upward energy and downward energy, what we call the heaven and earth energy. So heaven is always sending energy down into, from the crown down into the root, and the earth energy is going from the root, from the feet all the way up. And when it happens, is it goes up and down like this, it creates this microcosmic orbit that you are mixing together. Okay, and that's very much what we call. Some people say that it's kind of like a Kundalini energy. So it's really just this energy that you are trying to have go up and down in your body. Because really, that's what we call heaven and earth energy, Mother Earth, Father Sky energy. We talk a lot about this in practices. And then you are the center, the man between heaven and earth, right? You are the child of the mother and the father. And so you are storing energy now into your dantian, and that will create dantian, your navel, solar plexus. That will create this grounding energy, and it really allows you to work with your own spiritual energy.
the energy that's going standardly in the microcosmic orbit is post heaven chi. Whereas once the Kundalini energy is awakened and joins it, it's basically filling the microcosmic orbit with pre heaven Jing. So that's the difference between those two energies.
And that's what we're talking about, sexual cultivation. The sexual cultivation is pre-heaven chi, right? And because that energy is what we got from our mothers or our parents. That's our genetic energy. So even with women, with the blood and the menstrual cycle, and with men with their gene, their sperm energy, that's what you cultivate. And when you can cultivate that energy, that's when you're getting this extra abundant energy in your system.
And then I think we're dealing with nourishing yin, and with all this overwhelm and chaos from the eclipses, something as simple as just making sure that you're getting enough rest, because with that hollow pulse and the depletion that we're feeling, getting enough rest can really, it's a simple thing to do. We can all do it, and it really helps nourish that yin.
Yes, exactly.
Foods, every week we say grounding foods, because grounding is still the name of the game with all the eclipses and everything that's just happened in Virgo. Grounding is still going to continue to be a priority. So root vegetables, all of those, but also soups. Like tonic soups can also help nourish the yin. There are other soups that can help clear and drain any excess that's in the body as well. So soups, I would say, is a good food to have. I don't know about you guys in summer. For us in winter, we can. I've been having some good soups at least.
Yeah, yeah. And I would say avoid fried food, spicy food right now, sugars, candy, like things that are like snacky that aren't really adding carb or are adding like good calories to your body, just because it's just going to add more anxiety. It's going to make your pulse even more active, yet you're not adding any nutrients, so you're gonna make that hollow pulse, that very surging extra pulse, be worse. You're just gonna get even more anxiety. So that's why don't add all these excess sugars right now, but like eat healthier, eat a little bit more, not necessarily bland, but just don't add too much of these sugars right now because you don't want to increase your anxiety.
For sure. Let's walk through the temple door, Charlie.
Yes, let's go to the temple doors, everybody. Woo! And this time, I bought the big bowl. I brought the root chakra bowl. All right, here we go.
Sound bowls are so short, Charlie. They're so short. Just as I'm getting into it, you end it. I want to still jam a little bit.
I could definitely go longer. And did you have any closing? Oh.
Yeah, Virgo is still where the solution lies. It's still lying in the grounding and in getting some order into our lives. But now that we are in Libra season, you really have got that extra dynamic where you're adding that Libra flavor, and really not just for yourself, but what you're trying to do is create balance for yourself and those of others to really enhance harmony within your relationships. So this is a daily practice that you need to practice, and don't be trying to convince nobody of nothing, at least for the next few weeks.
Exactly.
That's your homework. That's your homework.
Yes. So do that homework to make sure that the codes of destiny doesn't trip you up. If you do your homework, they're not gonna trip you up.
Yeah, we'll be posting our next episode a week later due to extensive commitments over the next few weeks. So keep a lookout for that, but know that we haven't forgotten. We're just posting a week late.
So thank you again for a great episode. I hope you guys have a awesome, amazing couple of weeks as we kind of resume and come back soon. Thank you, everyone.
Namaste, y'all.